Go ahead. Hello, guys.
All right. Hello. Welcome to DM&D chat. I am Argent Wind, also known as Jim. I'm here with Nans. Hey, say hi, Nans.
Hi.
Uh, we t- we are back. We've had some issues with some technical difficulties and network issues and everything else. So hopefully all goes well today. Let's just give it a listen here. Yes, we are doing good. Cool, cool. Um, Anyway, we are starting up something a little bit new today. We're taking a break from world building a little bit, and we're going to look into a series of episodes here that I'm going to title, at least working title as we moving forward here, calling it Class Act. We're going to look at the D&D classes, kind of going in order, and then delve into like what makes them tick, not the mechanics, not all the details about them, but talking about like kind of what their roles are, how to play them, how to use them as NPCs or villains potentially, and then some different ways to look at them in terms of like different versions of them and even examples of barbarians or bards or wizards in other settings or game systems. So we're starting off as you might guess from the title here. We're starting off with barbarians, going alphabetically, and so we're looking at our big, beefy, brutal warriors. Now, to kind of get into this, first off, I want to say, Nans, how many barbarians have you played over the years or made as NPCs?
So I have made 3 or 4 NPCs of barbarians and one villain, and I
Mhm,
am currently playing as a character for the very first time. One.
mhm.
It's Athena's brother, sister.
Very good, sister. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I've only played one barbarian, and he actually wasn't primarily a barbarian. It was more of a dip into barbarian to get some survivability for a character. But I'll mention a little more on him a little later on. I've used barbarians as villains. I've tacked barbarian levels on to monsters sometimes. Some of the giants that we fought in Avarice there had barbarian levels, which is very, very fun.
Hmm.
Um, and just throwing in some of those class abilities and everything else to kind of give them a little bit more oomph. But basically, a barbarian is typically a physical damage dealer. They can take a lot of damage and dish out a lot of damage. They got a lot of health, some damage mitigation abilities, and ways of delivering a big bad hit of some kind. They don't do it by having martial prowess or martial artists. They do it by strength and brutality for the most part. Um, so their roles in the party are kind of like a tank, kind of that tank role of I'm going to get in things face, I'm going to draw some attention and keep it on me because you don't want to ignore the person who can punch you into next week. Um, they're obviously a DPS, a damage dealer there, because of their rage abilities, their strength, their reckless attacks. They just go in and hit hard and pound away on things. But they can also, because of their strength and their athletic abilities, they can do a lot of control abilities like grappling and keeping people from moving away from them and doing like things like that. So a lot of barbarians can take that kind of a role as well. Any other roles you can think of there, Nance, for others?
I've I'm playing a totem barbarian right now. So like she gets to have her wild spirit and all the nature stuff that happens with her.
Okay.
And like it's very similar, at least the way that I'm playing her, to how a druid of the shepherd druid has the totems that gets taken around
Okay.
with them. So yeah, she gets a bear and she gets the things that go with it. And I really like how she can be that big beefy dude. And the DM that I'm running with had us do points by instead of rolling. So
Sure.
she has a -4 modifier to intelligence, which just makes it
Oh
oh so
wow.
much easier to play.
Sure.
She's being stupid. You point and click
Yep.
and she goes and does the thing.
My first barbarian ever was back in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So for like old school barbarian, from the Unearthed Arcana, the first Unearthed Arcana book that came out there, the barbarian class. And yeah, he had a very low intelligence, but a very high wisdom. He was dumb, but not so dumb. So
Right.
he was very intuitive, would kind of like notice things a lot, but he wasn't smart about putting things together. And so he had some it was a dwarf barbarian, basically a dwarf with a halberd, ran around just big old pole axe,
Mhm.
smacking things and beating him down there. Um, he didn't use ranged weapons. He had a throwing club, one an Ackley's, which if you old school D&D, it's the hook. It's the club with a hook and a rope attached to it there that you would throw on things, either hook into it or wrap around and catch on things and pull things that way. So he would kind of a bit of had sort of that kind of thing going for him. He also had a couple of hand axes he could throw, but typically, yeah, just a typical berserking barbarian type person, run in, smack things, not too smart.
He's not smart, but he knew he wasn't smart.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Classic, and because I made him when I was fairly young. This goes into dating how old I am here, but I was a big fan of Highlander, the original one,
Oh,
and
I
his
love that
name was
show.
so instead of no, the movie, the original one, Christopher Lambert and
Oh,
Clancy Brown.
sorry. I was
The
referring
show
to
was
the
okay,
show.
but yeah, the show was okay. But being the original movie, which they're remaking pretty soon here with Henry Cavill. Okay, anyway, um, but the idea of so instead of Connor McLeod, he was Connor McLeod of the clan McLeod. The McLeod dwarves are a long running thing for me. So, um, but anyway, yeah, he would just rush in and bash things down here. Contrasted very, very much with my most recent barbarian I played was Antius Sciarla, who was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Right.
He was actually a blood hunter, as his primary class, but he used levels of barbarian. But the idea of he would take different potions. He was a mutant variant blood hunter, so he was all thinking about taking different mutagens and everything else. Well, his rage ability was literally popping a potion and becoming kind of the Mister Hyde version, which for Antius was Scar. Um, and would basically run around and bash things and beat them up and everything else. But he had a high intelligence because blood hunters have a high intelligence.
Mhm.
So it's a very odd thing of being that like intelligent brute. So which in most versions of Mr. Hyde, actually Mr. Hyde was very crafty and intelligent. He was just strong and brutal. Um, So, some other fun variations of the barbarian. Obviously, just the big axe wielding, hammer wielding, sword wielding things it runs in. Obviously, you got the Conan type, which basically Conan was actually more of a thief, but his way of fighting was run in and hit it. He would often sneak his way into in places there, but when it came to fighting, it was smack it as hard as you can until it stops moving. But some other interesting variants is think of the martial artist that all about hitting things really hard with unarmed attacks, the pummeler, and mixing barbarian with monk is a way to go there. We actually had that with our little kobold. There was a barbarian monk um, esque there in Avarice. Um, some other variants for barbarians, any kind of a shapeshifter like a werewolf or lycanthrope of some kind works really well because you can rage while you're becoming a werewolf. The shifter race or anything else that gives you a sort of a secondary version. Um, what are other ones you know of there, Nance?
So I was toying with the idea when, I asked you about Sora and multi-classing her. Barbarian was one of the ones I was thinking about. Near the
Oh
end,
yeah,
she was doing it anyways because she was just
sure.
fed up and angry and like she didn't have the actual rage stat, but I played it like that.
hmm
So I was thinking about Paladin Barbarian. Um,
hmm
at
Actually,
at at
yeah,
that point
the
it
crazed
would
Avenger.
right, right.
Yeah.
What level?
Yep.
I think we did that at level 8. So by level 11, she would
Right.
have been 3 levels of Barbarian, 8 levels of
hmm
Paladin.
yeah, and you go as like zealot barbarian that does the undying ability and just like
Yeah.
you just go in there and beat things as hard as you can in there. I mean, combining smite with rage
Yeah.
because you can
Yeah.
do that. Great way to go there.
Uh-huh.
A really odd I've seen this here, but imagine a barbarian rogue. The
Okay.
idea of reckless attack, you always have advantage, means you always have sneak attack. You can reckless attack, reckless sneak attack. The idea of hiding somewhere and then jumping out and beating things as you can there from hiding. So you get sneak attack and rage and reckless attack, so you have advantage. um, there was a great version of that. Talus and Jaffe in Critical Role in a one-shot thing there played the Owl Bear, which was a vigilante character he was a barbarian who used daggers. Um, but he was all about reckless attack, sneak attack. Um,
So a question for you on your
um,
barbarians, Jim.
yeah.
I
Mhm,
heard you say most of your barbarians are using weapons.
mhm,
Unarmored attack and natural armor is one of the bigger things that barbarians have, right? They just like to
mhm.
pummel you with their fists. So why did you choose to use a weapon?
It depends, because the classic barbarian typically uses a weapon of some kind there, and but I mean, yeah, there's no you can't be just a guy who punches things. I did have another barbarian. I forgot about Koltosh. Oh my gosh, one of my other dwarves who was a frenzied berserker. He was a 3.5 barbarian. And he was a dude who ran around in spiked armor and had spiked gauntlets. Things he he would It was, the Battle Rager, so if you ever if you ever read the old Icewind Dale series, the Drizzt Do'Urden books,
Hmm.
one of those guys was Thibbledorf Went? Pwent? Went? Um, and he basically was a guy in plate armor, and he would just jump on things and hug them and then just thrash around. Um, so yeah, I mean that's definitely a variation of barbarian. They're using more unarmed attacks or just spiked gauntlets and punching things. Um, or the idea again, we had a little bit of that with Esk, who would oftentimes use his unarmed strikes, either kicks or tail attacks for him as he would use them. Um, so yeah, you definitely can't. There's no reason you can't do unarmed attacks as well. Mixing in that monk level if you have a way to up your unarmed damage. Great way to go here. Um, I kind of had an idea of that sort of vigilante rogue barbarian. And here's an odd example, Batman.
Yes.
I mean, he was a monk barbarian in my case there with a decent intelligence. Batman had broken stats for a human. But
He had
because
none.
he had a high constitution, he had good strength, he had good dex, he had good intelligence and wisdom.
I believe he
Um,
had some charisma to go in there with it, but
Oh
yes.
yeah, because he was basically having to deceive everybody
Uh-huh.
as Bruce Wayne all the time. So yeah, Batman had a great stat line all across the board. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like class abilities, think about Batman in combat was could punch the crap out of things, but he also had gadgets and things and attacking from the shadows. So kind of a barbarian rogue would work for a Batman type of character, a vigilante character. That's kind of what Taliesin was going for with the Owl Bear, was
I
sort of that
had
vigilante sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a player who was playing an artificer barbarian.
Oh yeah.
And he's in the server. He does watch these every now and then. Hello, Green. Um,
Hey.
and so he was playing an artificer, and one of the very first few sessions we were talking at the very beginning, he said, "Hey, I'm trying to play Batman, but I don't want it to be as obvious as I'm playing Batman." And
Tell your friends about me.
he brought a bunch of like homebrew stuff, and you know me, I'm not really a big fan of
Sure.
homebrew, mainly because a lot of it is broken until you can figure out how it works in your world.
Yeah, balancing it out, yeah.
Exactly. So I had the conversations with him, like, I'm like, well, here's the thing we're gonna do, and I need you to understand who your party members are, because there's no way for you to tell me that you're gonna spend 3 months building a weapon, because that's what officers can do, while the
Mhm.
party is constantly moving, because that's all they do
Yeah,
is they just move. And we came up with this really cool way for his barbarian to basically punch the crap out of his bag of holding, and left it open long enough for him to build a furnace inside of the bag of holding, and left like a little air tube out, like a little tiny chimney outside of the bag of holding.
I think sure, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he
Uh,
made the bag of holding. It's his bag of holding, so
sure.
he
That's
can
cool. That's cool. I like it.
yeah,
Kind of a portable forge. Nice.
right. Yeah, portable
Um,
forge so that, because his crazy party members are just all over the place.
in chat, I'm hearing that your voice is very, very low in the stream, so you might want to you can
Mm,
open your volume a little bit.
I'm gonna try.
Okay. Um, so those are some interesting variations of of barbarians. I mean, obviously, adding in more a barbarian ranger works really well in terms of like having that sort of stealthier abilities because you're running around in the woods and you might have because I mean rangers tend to use like dual weapons and dual weapons along with like high strength can do some pretty good damage and everything else. So pretty much barbarians. Anytime you want to add in some extra punch, some extra heavy attacks if you're not using armor, then it's great to have that unarmored defense. Anything else from barbarians? We're talking about a D&D setting. The big thing is that you have to be really creative when it comes to combining uh, spell casting and barbarians. 'Cause the idea is that barbarians really like when they're raging, they can't cast spells, but you can maintain spells. So the idea of maybe a sorcerer type thing who has some buff spells they put on themselves and then go into rage and attack, where the spells they choose are more about they're more about like getting themselves more powerful and then using their barbarian abilities to deliver the damage. Is a great way to go. You just kind of run out of again. You get to kind of maintain those spells out of it. It's a little like when we get to this when we get into druids here. It's a little like casting a spell and then being able to wild shape into an animal and maintaining that spell while you're in your animal shape. So yeah, I mean, there's ways around that, and a lot of good ways to add flavor to the barbarian. And there's even some barbarian subclasses, either 2024 or 2014, or some of the other variations out there of barbarians that have some limited spell casting abilities or limited magical abilities as well. So there's always ways to kind of flavor that in there and add some things in it. So, um, So I want to get into some interesting examples, and I'm gonna throw this at you too here. But I want to point out some examples of barbarians you may not think of as a barbarian from uh, books, movies, other media out there, and some ones that are going to jump out at you right away here. If you're going into comics or going into cartoons or into the movies, Wolverine and Hulk. Those are both barbarians. They've got the damage mitigation, either the skeleton regeneration, whatever it is, and they're strong, they rage, they beat things up. So, I mean, classic barbarians right there, Wolverine and Hulk. Um, some other ones, uh, if you're into video games, Mass Effect, the Vanguard class in Mass Effect. Again, same thing. You've got your damage mitigation and sort of a shield that you can put up yourself here, and then ways of delivering a huge punch. So yeah, you've got this idea of I can defend and beat the crap out of things. So the Vanguard from Mass Effect. Any of the ones that jump out at you? Uh-oh. Did we lose Nance?
No, I'm still
There you go.
here. I'm playing with the
Hey,
audio.
oh,
It
gotcha.
yeah, it's not letting me go up any higher unless I start yelling. So, uh, um,
Okay,
I'm gonna play with it, but I can't play with it while we are recording.
sure, no worries. We don't want to break anything.
Yeah, no, not any worse than we already have.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Okay. So
um,
what's a barbarian from fiction that you might?
so I was talking to you off screen, and Fangbone from a cartoon show
Hmm?
on Netflix. It's a great little dude. He's from like back in caveman times, and he was teleported into our world. And it's a D&D show. It's really great. You guys should check it out. It's cartoon if you like cartoon type stuff. It's not anime, it's more cartoon. He's got this green nasty toe that he just loves to death. And if you take it from him, he's throwing a tantrum.
So toad isn't like a frog. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Toe, like
Okay.
like your big toe off of your foot.
How would someone take it from him?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
green toe that he put on a in a like a chain.
Oh, okay. It's not on his foot. It's okay. Got it. Okay.
Yep, not on
Was
his foot.
confused there. Yeah, I mean, barbarians that have like obsessions with like a cute a barbarian who has like a little pet. Well, I mean, the barbarian from the D&D cartoon had a pet unicorn.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, having an animal companion as a barbarian it makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of fun that way. Um, I'm gonna kind of I'm gonna throw a real curveball at you here. Um, Two characters from Adam Sandler, Waterboy and Happy Gilmore.
Yes, most
Uh,
definitely. A hundred,
Boom.
a hundred
And
percent.
I mean, they're the guys that do things in a way you wouldn't expect. You're pounding a square peg into a round hole because they can. Um, it's that neither of them are that bright, and they have no business doing what they're doing really, but they make it work because they are just have that over the top delivery of things.
Mhm.
Um, Another fun one I thought of there is like Jesse Ventura's character in Predator. And a lot of those action movies, when you think about it, there, like a lot of those Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, besides Conan, of course, that lead action star is taking a beating and beating people up, and it's that sort of barbarian aspect there. But that classic scene in Predator where guys are falling down and he picks up the minigun and just unloads into the forest and cuts everything down there. The barbarian who just keeps going and keeps going uh until nothing else is moving again. Like you either pound it into paste or turn it into a wasteland until your rage runs out. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here with barbarians.
The Hulk. You're gonna
So
play the
the
Hulk.
Hulk definitely, yeah, Wolverine and the Hulk there exactly. So both of them in comics. Obviously, in terms of villains like Sabretooth from X Men, same kind of thing. I'm a barbarian. I've got a damage mitigation and a ways to beat things up. Um,
I always looked at He-Man as the very first barbarian that I ever knew.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it definitely. Um, I mean, it's weird because you have that sort of like that duality of the less. I mean, obviously changing from someone into He-Man, but yeah, definitely. I mean, he's got that the look, obviously the unarmored defense.
Mhm.
He's got his animal mount there and his big sword. Absolutely. And a lot of the, and a lot. I mean, really the masters of the universe. If you weren't throwing spells at things, you had big muscles and beat things up. That's what you were doing. um, awesome. Um, some other chat. I see a few watching out there. Throw some ideas for your ideas for non D&D barbarians. If you're out there. Um, some other ideas there, or some other odd variations of barbarians. But to kind of get into using barbarians as NPCs and villains, kind of shift gears a little bit more here. We mentioned a little bit of this so far, but and I mentioned adding barbarian levels to a giant character or an ogre or a troll, or even just somebody you want to be more of a threat in some way. Um, is a great way. I mean, obviously, um, you got that damage mitigation if you're taking I mean, when you're raging, you take half damage from weapon attacks. If you have the bear totem, then you take half damage from a lot of different attacks. Um, so anytime you want to just dish out a little more damage with the enemies that you have, barbarians a great way to go. Any other barbarians that you think of for your villains or NPCs?
Me specifically? Um,
Sure. Have you made any barbarian bad guys?
I did make one, but that was when I was first learning how barbarians were supposed to work and completely forgot about rage and reckless attack. And the
Sure.
party wiped the floor with him. Um, that's when I discovered the love of a barbarian, and I was like, he shouldn't have died this quickly. I needed to do
Yeah.
some work on him.
Yeah.
Uh, it was in my first game. He was a werewolf, believe it or not.
Oh, perfect.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So like it was one of the player characters had decided that he wanted to do this whole undead lycanthropy type thing. You know who it
Sure,
is.
sure.
Yep.
Yep, yep, yep.
And I was like, I don't understand it, so let me build a barbarian werewolf and see how it works because in my head that was the only way I was going to make it work. It could have been a
Sure.
fighter. Fighter just didn't make
Yeah.
sense for a werewolf.
I mean, it again, it kind of depends on your take on them. You can have that crafty werewolf, or that if their mental stats don't change and they can move back and forth there. Obviously, a shape more like a shapeshifter than an actual lycanthrope.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, absolutely, and yeah, the idea of having a monstrous form lends itself right into rage. And obviously, um, I mean, obviously, when you change into wolf form, you automatically rage,
Yep.
and now you're doing more damage, and you've got advantage on athletic attacks and everything else. uh, Jumping on things and pinning them to the ground there with a grapple check and just biting and clawing into them. Great way to go with barbarians.
Elney also
Yeah.
gave me a Elney, one of our leaders from the Discord, he gave me
Mhm.
a Galapu. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's
Hmm.
a gnarly looking beast. I put it in a maze map for the players, and in this, it was a hag maze, so of course, things were weird. And their magic, if they were to cast Fireball, actually cast something along the lines of create water.
Mhm.
So I had a lot of prep work I had to do for their spell list versus what I was actually going to have the spell do. And then here comes this monstrous giant werewolf gnoll looking beast. And
Sure.
it almost obliterated the party. Like
Yeah. Oh
they
yeah.
their spells weren't working right. They were going down the wrong pathway. This thing could climb over top of it and it didn't have any issues. It was
Excellent.
it was fun. They eventually ended up rolling to do a spell. And when they did, it was a dimension door and it got them out of the trouble that they were in.
Nice.
So
Nice.
they got very lucky.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, barbarians. The idea of fleeing a barbarian is really, really important. There, fleeing from a barbarian in case there. Dowd put the idea of a barbarian mage boosting your armor with shield. Barbarians get some pretty high ACs. You have to add your Constitution and your Dex, and then being able to do that. The only problem with that concept there is you can't be raging in order you're casting a spell. But barbarians aren't always raging. They don't have to be. They've got a lot of good abilities outside of rage. Um, and then I think there are some variations of barbarian that actually can cast spells while they're raging. So I think remember there's a couple of variants out there that can do that, and that can get to be pretty. Again, you have ways of shrugging off or not being hit by things. They're surprisingly resilient in terms of like the guy running around in a loincloth and suddenly your weapons are bouncing off of him or doing half damage. I mean, that can be scary.
I mean, at one
Um,
point, aren't they like immune to almost everything?
Well, they're resistant to everything in terms of like they're you're talking about a baritone barbarian, then yes, they resist everything but psychic and
Yeah,
necrotic or
yeah,
psychic damage, I think, but about it. So yeah. Um
yeah.
yeah,
Some of them can
again,
get pretty gnarly.
yeah, I mean again, it's like ways of just taking more damage and being able to shrug it off. That's a fun way to go. And it doesn't hurt to reskin some of the barbarian abilities in terms of like how again obviously like with Antius, he drank a potion in order to rage. He drank a mutagen in order to rage. Um, the idea of tapping into a shapeshifter ability to rage as a barbarian, or you just go into a mindless frenzy of some kind. I mean, the idea of being able to do that. Um, I know that the frenzied berserker variations in various versions of D&D can shrug off like mind control effects because you're just so angry and raging that you just shrug it off. It's hard to contain all that. Um, you guys did fight a barbarian enhanced character in the form of your favorite chain wielding menace there.
I,
Um,
I believe you use that term a little too lightly. Favorite?
oh yeah, was that?
I don't think he was our favorite. Nope, not.
Oh come on, you loved him and you know it. Yeah, um, yeah, and actually I will give shout out to, and I don't know if you'll see this here, my friend Matt. It was based off of his character. We played in a game there that was we were all playing demon characters with some sort of a demon in our heritage, a demon or devil, and his character was named Adrastos, and he was a barbarian who had a heritage as a chain devil. And yes, this was just having a way to grapple people. It was a spiked chain, so he was like just shredding them up. Like imagine wielding a 20-foot long chainsaw, um, unwrapped chainsaw blade as his weapon. He was gross. And be able to just lash that thing around there. That's what Nico Vol was based off of the chained menace.
Hmm.
Um, uh, yeah, we can't. Unfortunately, now we can't up any of this volume anymore without breaking the streams. We don't want to do that. So sorry about that, guys. We'll hopefully get some sound levels next time. Here we go. Here, it's up as high as it goes. So we'll try to get that in there. Um, but again, those some more people jumping in here. We're talking about barbarians. What are some of your favorite barbarians in fiction, in practice, things you played? Some ideas of how barbarians can be used, um, tweaked, reskinned. That's what we're kind of getting into here. Um, so again, the real push to barbarians, as opposed to fighters. Um, what makes them be more memorable beyond they hit hard? Typically, it's more about the style of them. They hit hard, yes, but they also take a beating. They can do a lot more. Whereas a fighter, you might say, oh, well, they just wield a weapon and they're really good with fighting and doing fighting styles. Barbarians, it's more about the brutality, about the style that they bring to the table. The idea of this is a force to be contained. Um, uh, and if you were here earlier, some great examples of that is like Wolverine and the Hulk. They are barbarians. They hit hard, but they've got a lot going for them beyond just that. They can fill the role of a tank. They can fill that damage dealing thing here. Um, they but what's interesting is what makes a barbarian interesting is what are they when they are not raging? What are they when they're not in combat? And that's where things can be fun. Is it like what's that duality of what are they when they're not waiting in there with their big weapon and hitting and beating the crap out of things. Um, Having a nature-based tracker type person, having anyone that's maybe a little more mild mannered. They hulk out and become the big damage dealer. Um, what else would make a barbarian jump out? Make them more memorable. So hopefully that's some ideas there. Um, but again, it's a barbarian is not one thing. I mean, yes, it can be that one dimensional thing there, but you can really add it in there. The idea of I'm a spellcaster who can suddenly become stronger and taking things out. A marbles champ. I mean, a barbarian specializing in thrown weapons that can be scary. Imagine like you're hucking things out there really strong. You can reckless attack with a range attack, and you're throwing a rock at someone or marbles at someone and taking them out there. I mean, imagine like this guy who's just kind of standing there, who's kind of unassuming a little bit there, and he suddenly throws an iron ball at you and crushes your chest in, and like a barbarian doesn't have to go screaming crazy. Um, like rage doesn't have to take the it doesn't have to take the image of I'm screaming, yelling, like going to town here. No, I can also be just I am focused. I am laser focused on taking out someone here, and I am going to mess them up with some enhanced damage because I am going to eliminate this threat. So, um, again, how you want to play up your barbarian side of things here can change wildly from character to character. Um, Yeah. So, uh, his love for the theater. I'm not sure where you're going with that one here, but I would interested to see where that might go. Um, what do we think here? Um, any other questions or things to throw out there?
That's about it for me, Jim.
Um, so I I challenge you with. I mean, obviously, and my connection is getting a little weird here on me here, but hopefully I can keep things going. Um, with your barbarian NPCs, PCs, you can play them the Conan the Barbarian, meat, big slam of meat, hit things with a big stick, punch things, pummel things, whatever. Um, you can really do that. But you can also have some fun with it, play around. The Jekyll and Hyde, the Bruce Banner and the Hulk. The idea of having that duality of what are you when you rage, what are you when you're not raging. That can be really make a barbarian character stand out from the normal stereotypical one. So I challenge you to have fun with your barbarians. Um, Again, their roles are fairly obvious, but how they do it can vary wildly from one version to the next. So um, don't be afraid to try something out there. Um, it doesn't have to be from the wilderness there. So now, does it have to be in the wilderness? It doesn't have to be. You can have a city barbarian. Like I said, Batman could be a barbarian. When he gets into combat, he goes toe to toe and he beats things up there. I mean, the brutal Batman telling your friends about me and just kind of coming out of nowhere and taking people out. Um, like, yeah. So it doesn't have to be from the wilderness. It's the stereotypical version. Um, I mean, became a barbarian because the kids picked on his need to be Othello. Yeah, I mean, the barbarian could be someone who becomes that because he was picked on. Um, and somehow he's able to tap into that rage. Mr. Furious from Mystery Men. While he was a pretty ineffectual barbarian initially, he eventually found his power and was able to really tap into his rage. So obviously, there's a lot of different ways to go with that. And I definitely challenge you to try out some different versions, try out some different ways of looking into that. Um, Look at look for inspirations in your action movies, some of your martial arts movies. You oftentimes in martial arts movies have like that attacker who's just I'm going to stand here and just get punched a bunch here and just shrug it all off, and then grab someone and throw them across the room. Um, that's the kind of barbarian you can look at there too, in terms of like I'm just going to stand here and take it, or just tap into that ability to just not take the damage. Um, that's a fun way to go too. Um, Peaceful monk style barbarian who's gentle and philosophical, but when the time comes, they can throw down. Absolutely, the whole idea of just being that sort of um, like, they have that inner fire, that ability to tap into that here. And again, their rage just may come in with some focus, or they're shifting a stance, and now they're coming into the idea of a martial art style character who then taps into a tiger style or a bear style or whatever you want to kind of the idea is that now I'm shifting my stance to do this, and now you're in your rage as you're now doing that sort of thing where you're focusing and doing your attacks differently. And you can there's so many different ways you can skin this and do fun ideas there. Great way to look at it there. Um, I hope that gives you guys some more ideas here. Um, we'll go ahead and unless we have some other things to throw out there, we can wrap things up here. But next time we're going to continue in alphabetical. We're going to go from barbarian to bard, and look beyond the stereotype. Everyone talks about a bard being the like, I need to seduce everything. There's a lot of different ways to play a bard. And so we're gonna again, I challenge you for our next time we get together here, think of some ideas that you may have seen bards played differently or created bards that don't follow the stereotypical thing here. That's what we're kind of looking at in the series is looking beyond like obviously what is the role but also what are some ways to break the mold or get away from the stereotype? So hope you can join us next time for that. Um, if you have any other suggestions, feel free to drop into the comments on the video. Give us a like if you can there. Tell your friends about it. And if you ever want to get some other ideas for things, um, jump into our to the tumble tanker here and ask some questions. We can get some discussions outside of the video here. And if you ever need ideas for making variations on characters and getting ideas there, we're always happy to help in and jump with that too. So hopefully we'll see you in the tumble tanker at some point. Hopefully we'll see you in a later video down the road. But thanks for hanging out with us, Nans. Thanks for quietly hanging out with us.
I'm gonna work on the audio, don't worry.
Yeah, we'll get that worked out there. Again, we're just getting back into the swing of things here with your time away from a normal stuff here. We'll for sure. But hopefully you'll join us next time. Hope you enjoyed now and in the future. We'll see you again soon. Have fun and happy games. Take care, folks.